Friends, Not Masters. A Political Autobiography. Mohammad Ayub Khan, President of Pakistan. Published in 1967. This is a Plisken audiobook presentation dedicated to those who have worked for the building of Pakistan as a progressive and modern state, and to those who have defended it with such distinction. Chapter 5. Politics. 1948 to 1958. We crossed a river of blood to achieve independence. People were uprooted and driven like millions of dry leaves by a turbulent gust of fanaticism and blind passion. They were trampled and crushed under the feet of communal fury. Hundreds of thousands of men, women and children were butchered, and the subcontinent was engulfed in a bloody civil war. What sustained us was the abounding faith of our people in their destiny, and their unfaltering devotion to the ideology for which they had secured a motherland of their own. India's attitude to Pakistan continued to be one of unmitigated hostility. Her aim was to cripple us at birth. She denied us our share of financial resources, and dishonored solemn agreements for the supply of our share of stores and equipment. She then involved us in the struggle for Kashmir. When the ceasefire was called, we had to hold and guard nearly 500 miles of the line along extremely difficult terrain. India maintained a constant posture of aggression, which meant that we had to strain our limited resources, almost to breaking point, to build up and equip an army which could contain Indian ambitions. On the political front, we were without a proper constitution. We were working under the Indian Independence Act 1947, and since the Pakistan Muslim League had a majority in the central legislature, some kind of a government could manage to function. The Quaid-e-Azam, who had worked for the creation of Pakistan with supreme dedication, died in 1948 before he could give the country a constitution which, coming from him, would have enjoyed popular support. His successor, Liaquat Ali Khan, for some inexplicable reason, instead of first completing the process of constitution-making and consolidating the position of his party at the center, started with general elections in the provinces. Perhaps he was discouraged by the reception accorded to the report of the First Basic Principles Committee. I believe he was advised that if he could get a majority in the provinces, he would then be able to establish a majority at the center. His position was considerably weakened by the political situation in the Punjab. Liaquat Ali Khan had decided to support Mian Mumtaz Dultana, who was then the chief minister, as against the Nawab of Mamdot. A Proda 5 case was filed against the Nawab of Mamdot for certain irregularities. All this was played up by the press, and a hostile atmosphere was built up against Liaquat Ali Khan. His opponents, backed by the press, attacked his wife, who I know is a very fine lady indeed. She was working for the amelioration of the conditions of women, so that they might enjoy equal status with men, and play their legitimate role in society. But attacks on her were essentially intended to embarrass the Prime Minister. Those who followed Liaquat Ali Khan in political office proved unequal to the task. They did not understand the problems facing the country, nor did they have the courage to try to solve them. One after another, they made a mess of things by trying to work an unworkable system of government, and the country started slipping very fast. The central government gradually lost its grip over the affairs of the state, being beset by the constant pressure tactics of parliamentarians and the growing relative strength of the provincial governments, who were virtually holding it to ransom. It was caught between the conflicting claims of the provinces, and any two provinces could gang up to browbeat the central authority. The period between Liaquat Ali Khan's death and 1958 was distressing. Not only was the central government at loggerheads with the provinces, but a great deal of intrigue and dogfighting was going on within the central government itself. A civil servant who had become finance minister at the time of independence elevated himself to the position of governor-general. Another turned himself overnight from secretary to government, a civil service post, to minister for finance. All it required was rewriting the designation on the nameplates outside their offices. The politicians were naturally dependent on permanent services, but the more powerful among the services had developed political ambitions of their own. Everyone seemed to have a group of his own, and his sole occupation was to grind his own axe, regardless of whether the country was ground to pieces in the process. One climax was reached in 1954, when Governor-General Ghulam Mohammad used the pretext of the worsening economic situation, near famine conditions, and the Punjab disturbances, to dismiss Khawaja Nazimuddin's ministry. While the latter was busy making futile gestures, quoting his majority in the legislature, and, some say, supplicating the Queen of England to come to his rescue, the Governor-General appointed Muhammad Ali Bogra Prime Minister, and a number of Nazimuddin's colleagues in the cabinet accepted office in the new cabinet without demur, if without avidity. Muhammad Ali Bogra started as a protege of Ghulam Muhammad. As he acquired confidence, he thought he should disengage himself from the apron strings of the Governor-General. People like Fazlur Rahman, Hashim Gazdar, and Abdus Sattar Pirzada encouraged him to assert himself. They would tell him that if he was not careful he would meet the fate of his predecessor. They thought the only answer was to curtail the powers of the Governor-General by amending the Indian Independence Act 1947. I remember this very well, as on that day I happened to be in Karachi, where I had gone to see the Prime Minister. I was aware of a great deal of coming and going, and I found it very difficult to discuss any problem with the Prime Minister. Not that it was ever easy to discuss anything with him. In the midst of something quite serious he would pick up one's pen or something and ask, "Where did you get this one?" He was like a child in these things. But apart from his usual childishness there was an atmosphere of peculiar hurry around the Prime Minister's house, and I asked him what it was about. I had by then got to know these fellows. They were never in a hurry for any good purpose. He told me quietly that his colleagues wanted some amendment to be made in the Government of India Act, by which the Governor-General's powers would be limited. A resolution was printed in the middle of the night and placed in the pigeonholes of members of the National Assembly. In the morning the Assembly met as a constitution-making body, an hour before its scheduled time, and revoked Section 9, 10.10a, 10b, and 17 of the Government of India Act, thus stripping the Governor-General of the powers in exercise, of which he had dismissed the Nazimuddin cabinet. The resolution was moved and passed within 10 minutes. The Governor-General was convalescing in Abbottabad at that time. I mentioned this once to the late Maulvi Tamizuddin Khan, who was then Speaker of the Central Assembly. "You talk about political morality. What about your changing the constitution without even informing the Governor-General, who was in the country and had been appointed presumably by majority support of the House? If you did not want him you should have removed him. But you did not have the moral courage to do that. Instead a subterfuge was adopted. The change meant not only limiting the powers of an individual, but destroying the focal point of authority." Maulvi Tamizuddin replied that such things were not unprecedented. "Nor are murders," I said, "but by that token you don't condone them." Ghulam Mohammad was not the kind of man to take things lying down, whatever else he might have lacked. He certainly did not lack courage. He could fight anybody and stand up to anyone. The man was absolutely fearless. He was a sick man at that time, and his speech was quite unintelligible. He must have said to himself, "All right, if this is how you have treated me, I shall pay you back in the same coin." I went to the United States soon after this, with Prime Minister Muhammad Ali Bogra, Sir Zafrullah Khan, and Chaudhry Muhammad Ali. The Prime Minister got a message from the Governor-General to return home at once. I sensed trouble and realized that the old man was on the warpath and was going to dismiss him. The Prime Minister was also worried and cancelled his visit to Canada. We decided to return as quickly as possible. When we reached London we found that there was no caste-bound flight that day, so we had to charter a plane to get back to Karachi. At London Airport there was a telephone call for me from the Governor-General. I could not understand what he was saying, and I gave the telephone to Iskander Mirza. All we could make out was that he wanted me to get back to Pakistan at once. He was not interested in the others. The Prime Minister was worried about what might happen to him on his return. It was with great difficulty that I persuaded him to accompany us back home. He kept asking me, "Can you guarantee that I will not be put under arrest when I get back?" I could give him no guarantee, but I assured him that such a thing could not possibly happen. He retorted, "And supposing you are arrested too?" I replied, "That will be fine. You will be in good company." On the way I told Iskander Mirza, and Chaudhry Muhammad Ali that it would be extremely unwise if the Prime Minister was taken to the Governor-General immediately on our arrival in Karachi. Such a confrontation could lead to an ugly situation. The decision was that some of us should go to the Governor-General's house, and persuade the old man to act with reason, and come to some understanding with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister should go to his own house, and wait for a signal from us. Muhammad Ali Bogra put up a brave front, but, I think, inwardly he was quite frightened. He had sent a message from London, that he should be provided with army protection on arrival. I was deeply perturbed myself, knowing the Governor-General's temperament. I was worried that he might do something desperate. The prestige of the country was involved, and if some extreme measure was taken, it would bring her into disrepute. The only sensible course was to bring about a rapprochement between the Governor-General and the Prime Minister. Iskander Mirza, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali and I went to the Governor-General's house while the Prime Minister, with some others, went to his own house. The Governor-General was lying in his bedroom upstairs. He had very high blood pressure, and an agonizing backache which compelled him to lie flat on hardboard. He was bursting with rage, emitting volleys of abuse, which, luckily, no one understood. Chaudhry Muhammad Ali ventured to say something, and received a volley. Then Iskander Mirza said something and got another. We were pleading with him to give another chance to Muhammad Ali. His only reply was an angry growl, "Go off you go." He kept on saying no, no. All he wanted was to shoo us off. We marched out of the bedroom in single file, Iskander Mirza at the head, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali following, and I bringing up the rear. I was about to step out of the room when the nurse attending the Governor-General tugged at my coat. I turned and found myself facing a different man. There he was, the sick old Governor-General, who a moment ago was insane with anger, now beaming with delight and bubbling with laughter. I said in my heart, "You wicked old man." He beckoned me with a peculiar glee in his eye, "Sit down on the bed." He then pulled out 2 documents from under his pillow. On one was written something to this effect: "I, Ghulam Muhammad so-and-so, because of this, that and the other, hand over such and such authority to General Ayub Khan, and command him to produce a constitution within 3 months. I looked at that paper and said to myself, "Damn your soul. For the last 8 years you have done damn all, and you expect me to produce a constitution in 3 months. The other document was to the effect that I had accepted the offer, and for a brief moment, I had those historic documents in my hand. As I looked at these pieces of paper, everything within me cried no. I said, "You are being reckless and you will do the country immense harm. I am engaged in building up the army. We have an enemy, an implacable enemy in India. We may not want to be India's enemy, but she insists on treating us as one. I can serve this country better in my profession. I believe I can do something useful, and in your present frame of mind you are doing something which in the long run will only damage the country." His answer was another volley of abuse. But he realized that I was not going to be a party to an act of recklessness. While I was going through this, Muhammad Ali Bogra was engaged with his own advisers. They were telling him that the Governor-General could not possibly touch him. We found some difficulty in persuading Muhammad Ali Bogra to come to the Governor-General's house. The Governor-General and the Prime Minister finally came to some understanding, and a kind of truce was arranged between them. A serious crisis was thus averted for the time being. When I said no to Ghulam Muhammad's offer, it was Providence that helped me. Had I succumbed to the temptation, the course of history might well have been different. We would certainly not have had an army worth the name, and the one stabilizing element in the whole situation would have been neutralized. The country still did not have a constitution. The first Basic Principles Committee report, produced by Liaquat Ali Khan, had proved unpopular. Nazimuddin took another 16 months to produce the second report, which was equally unacceptable. Muhammad Ali Bogra tinkered with the problem for more than 2 years, and yet there was no agreement on the basic principles of the new constitution, and this 7 years after independence. The demand for the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly, which had lost all prestige, was gaining support. At about that time, Suhrawardi, who had led the United Front to a landslide victory in the provincial elections in East Pakistan, issued a statement from Zurich, advising the Governor-General to dissolve the Constituent Assembly, as it had become totally unrepresentative, at least insofar as its East Pakistan members were concerned. He further suggested that fresh elections be held from amongst the existing provincial legislatures. The Constituent Assembly was finally dissolved on October 24, 1954, and I was asked by the Governor-General to join the new cabinet, with Muhammad Ali Bogra as Prime Minister. Much against my inclination I had to agree to this, but I made it quite clear to the Governor-General that my chief interest was in the army. The one consideration which made me accept this offer was that I wanted to act as a buffer between the politicians and the armed forces. The government was utterly confused and almost leaderless, and I knew that the politicians had their eyes on the army, in which they wanted to create their own pockets of support. It was during this period that I presented my program to the cabinet, contained in a document which I had drafted earlier. But about that I shall have more to say later. The new Constituent Assembly was formed in June 1955. Suhrawardy had joined the cabinet under Muhammad Ali Bogra in December 1954, and had been an ardent supporter of one unit. In fact, he drafted the one-unit bill, which he was to pilot through the Assembly. The intention of the bill was to integrate the provinces of Northwest Frontier, the Punjab, Sindh, Baluchistan, and states and frontier regions into one united province of West Pakistan. The existence of different provinces organized on linguistic and racial lines facilitated political maneuvering by unscrupulous elements, to the serious detriment of the economic and strategic interests of the area. The one-unit bill was intended to put an end to all this, and to enable the whole of West Pakistan to develop and progress on a uniform pattern. But when Chaudhry Muhammad Ali was appointed Prime Minister in August 1955 with the support of the United Front, he became lukewarm towards the one-unit proposal, and suggested that the bill be circulated to elicit public opinion. Suhrawardy found himself outmaneuvered, and missed his chance of becoming Prime Minister. The Governor-General, who had brought him into the cabinet, had gone on sick leave, and Iskander Mirza had taken over as acting Governor-General. To provide a counterpoise to Suhrawardy, he started cultivating Fazlul Haq, forgetting that only a year before he had condemned him as a traitor. The whole situation was becoming curiouser and curiouser. Chaudhry Muhammad Ali managed to produce a constitution which was promulgated on March 23, 1956. It was a document of despair. The Prime Minister was so anxious to go down in history as the author of a constitution that he was prepared to accommodate all points of view. What the country got was not a constitution, but a hodgepodge of alien concepts which had already brought enough confusion and chaos to the country. The Constitution, by distributing power between the President, the Prime Minister and his cabinet, and the provinces, destroyed the focal point of power, and left no one in a position of control. Ironically enough, the author of the Constitution became its first victim. During those days I saw him once in an almost helpless state in his office. He also held the defense portfolio, and I had gone to see him with some defense problem. He said to me, "My party has deserted me, it is all over." I uttered some words of encouragement, but he would not be comforted. No, this is far too serious. Why don't you take over and save me from Tin's business?" I said, "Look, don't talk about these things to me, talk to your president, and try to find some sensible way out of this mess." Iskander Mirza had by then taken a firm control of affairs, having been unanimously elected first President of the Republic under the 1956 Constitution. Shrewd as he was, he could see how the Constitution could be used to promote political intrigues and bargaining. No one knew any longer who belonged to which political party. It was all a question of swapping labels, a Muslim Leaguer today, a Republican tomorrow. And yesterday's traitors were tomorrow's chief ministers, indistinguishable as Tweedledum and Tweedledee. In September 1956, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali yielded place to Suhrawardy, who had by then managed to get into the good books of President Iskander Mirza. Once again Suhrawardy appeared on the political scene as a strong supporter of one unit, and blandly assured East Pakistan that on his assumption of office 98% of provincial autonomy had already been given, and that the slogan of provincial autonomy, which brought him to power, was a political stunt. After just over a year, in October 1957, Suhrawardy was supplanted by Chandrigar, who managed to complete a miserable 59 days in office, and was replaced by Malik Feroz Khan Noon. In West Pakistan, Dr. Khan Sahib became Chief Minister by the combined efforts of President Mirza, Prime Minister Chowdhury Muhammad Ali, and Governor Gurmani, just before the one-unit scheme was actually put into operation. The elections to the West Pakistan Assembly in January 1956 gave the Muslim League a clear majority in the legislature, and they wanted to oust the Chief Minister. To this the governor of the province did not agree, and the Muslim League ministers in the cabinet having resigned, their places were overnight filled by their political rivals within the Muslim League. Dr. Khan Sahib went ahead and formed a new party in April 1956, called the Republican Party, comprising deserters from the Muslim League Party. Indiscipline and lack of solidarity within the parties were manifested in the free use of threats and pressures. Members crossed the floor and changed panics freely, and even charges of kidnapping and manhandling of assembly members were made on both sides. The Republican Party's stand on important issues in West Pakistan politics was in favor of separate electorates and in support of the one-unit scheme. However, Dr. Khan Sahib, under pressure from Iskandar Mirza and Suhrawardy, who wanted to maintain the political balance prevailing at the time, at the centre and in East Pakistan, went back on their promise on the electorate issue. The Muslim League, in an effort to throw out the Republican government, joined hands with the National Awami Party on the pretext of undoing one unit. Many Republican Party members crossed the floor and joined the Muslim League, which again became a majority party. But Iskandar Mirza's reaction was to impose Section 193 in West Pakistan, by this means dismissing the ministry and asking the governor to assume direct rule. The result was that after 2 months, when direct rule ended, the same Republican Party that had been defeated on the floor of the House returned to power. Dr. Khan Sahib, however, resigned from the leadership, and Sardar Abdur Rashid was appointed in his place. Now the Republicans made the same promise to the National Awami Party of undoing one unit, to secure its support. One of the results was a break in the Awami League Republican alliance at the centre, and in West Pakistan Sardar Abdur Rashid had to resign both from chief ministership and leadership of the Republican Party, after the NAP had again withdrawn its support in favour of the opposition Muslim League, on the basis of a vague programme of reforms. Rashid's place was taken by Muzaffar Ali Khan Qazubash, the third Republican chief minister of West Pakistan. In East Pakistan a serious crisis occurred on March 31, 1958, when Fazlul Haq, the governor, dismissed Ataur Rahman Khan's cabinet. Later that night Fazlul Haq was himself dismissed by Iskandar Mirza. Ataur Rahman was succeeded by Abu Hussain Sarkar, who was in turn dismissed within 12 hours of assuming office, and the Ataur Rahman cabinet was back again in power. As in West Pakistan, the NAP played its disruptive role of supporting, and then opposing one ministry after another in East Pakistan. Its withdrawal of support led to the fall of the Awami League ministry, on 19 June, and the United Front Minis succeeded it. The same day the NAP switched support to the Awami League, and brought down the United Front ministry. The situation became so confused, that the president declared Section 193 President's Rule, in the province on June 24, 1958. After 2 months Ataur Rahman Khan was reinstated as chief minister. The Provincial Assembly declared the Speaker of unsound mind, and a brawl in the House on 21 September resulted in the death of its Deputy Speaker, Shahid Ali. By the middle of 1958, the whole country was in the grip of a serious economic crisis. Reckless spending seemed to be the order of the day. We were incurring foreign exchange liabilities to the extent of Rs. 30 to 40 million every month in excess of our earnings. The foreign exchange reserves were down to Nepalese rupee, 420 million, of which about 140 million were not negotiable. In another 10 months or so the currency would have lost all value, and we might have had a complete breakdown of the monetary and banking system in the country. Throughout this confusion, there was incessant talk of holding general elections under the 1956 Constitution. These elections were promised for November 1957. They were then postponed to 1958. The President had thoroughly exploited the weaknesses in the Constitution and had got everyone connected with the political life of the country utterly exposed and discredited. I do not think that he ever seriously wanted to hold general elections. He was looking for a suitable opportunity to abrogate the Constitution. Indeed, he was setting the stage for it. To the politicians, particularly those who had been debarred from political life, the prospect of general elections was enough temptation to start a countrywide campaign, ostensibly for political support but in fact to intimidate their opponents. The leading personality was Khan Abdul Qayyum Khan, who was going round the country spitting fire and preaching civil war. He went about saying openly that if his party did not win the elections, rivers of blood would flow. He found eloquent associates in my own brother Sardar Bahadur Khan and Raja Ghazanfar Ali Khan. Khan Abdul Qayyum Khan built up the Muslim League National Guards, about 60,000 strong. They paraded in the streets, wearing uniforms and steel helmets and carrying rifles. On September 20, 1958, the government banned the wearing of military uniforms, and the maintenance of military or paramilitary organizations by individuals or associations. Prime Minister Malik Firoz Khan Noon announced on 23 September that there would be little chance of free and fair elections if every political party had a private army of its own. Qayyum Khan was not to be deterred. He arrived in Karachi on the same day, and thousands of his supporters defied the prohibitory orders issued by the government. The Working Committee of the Muslim League adopted a resolution on 28 September that the government would be dislodged, if need be, by extra-constitutional methods. The situation was further complicated by the Khan of Kalat who, taking advantage of the general confusion, started conspiring to bring about the secession of Kalat from Pakistan. It was seriously suggested at the time that he was encouraged in this by Iskandar Mirza, who was setting the stage for his final action. The Khan of Kalat was arrested on October 6, 1958, and deprived of all distinctions, privileges and amenities. What was more dangerous was that some of the politicians like Qayyum Khan had started making contacts with certain members of the armed forces. They were spreading all kinds of rumors to isolate senior officers, and to create groups of army officers to support them in the pursuit of their ambitions. From a soldier's position, it was quite clear to me that the general elections were going to be stand-up fights. There would be large-scale disturbances all over the country, and civil authority, already groaning under the heels of the politicians, would be incapable of dealing with the situation. Whether the army liked it or not, it would get embroiled, because in the final analysis it would become a question of maintaining some semblance of law and order in the country. The army could not remain unaffected by the conditions around it, nor was it conceivable that officers and men would not react to all the political chicanery, intrigue, corruption, and inefficiency manifest in every sphere of life. They had their relatives, they read newspapers, and some had their contacts. Being a patriotic and national army, it was bound to respond to the thinking of the people in the country. I could see that many of the officers and men were feeling dejected and despondent. Not infrequently they would be told, "You Army Wallace, you should be true to your salt. While the country is going to the dogs, you are enjoying yourselves." Not only was I blamed, everybody in uniform was being blamed. Perfectly respectable people would come to me and say, "You can save the situation, but you are not prepared to take any risk." Some of my friends put it to me even more bluntly, and I said to them, "What can I do? After all, I am not responsible for all this. You can only criticize me for the things that I am responsible for." As things deteriorated, more and more people came and talked to me in the same strain. I could see a deep despair in their eyes. Wherever I went, and I traveled a great deal from one cantonment to another, inspecting troops, and whenever people gathered I was aware of the same despair. The sense of demoralization had seeped down to the masses, and they started saying openly, "Let somebody save this country." The implication was obvious: it was the army alone that could step into the breach. That was the only disciplined organization that could give the country the necessary covering fire, in order to enable it to steady itself and extricate itself from the evils which had surrounded it. Things did not look like improving, but I hoped that someone might rise to the occasion. I would have been the first person to welcome him, and to give him all support. I kept hoping and praying. Another worry I had was how, if the army once got drawn into political life, and this seemed inevitable, it could withdraw itself from the situation. The outside world was going to interpret the action of the army in terms of the coup d'état which frequently occurred in certain other countries. This would have had a damaging effect on the image and reputation of Pakistan. A well-organized, trained and disciplined army would find it extremely distasteful to be turned into an instrument for securing political power. But as conditions were, the army alone could act as a corrective force and restore normalcy. To me it was like exposing my own child to unpredictable hazards. I used to counsel patience. Somewhere in the back of my mind was the thought that Iskander Mirza might be able to evolve some pattern out of the chaos which he had created. But he himself was feeling insecure, and had lost credit with the people. He worked and thrived in an atmosphere of intrigue. He talked to me on several occasions during those days, and I could sense that he was feeling desperate and cornered. I would tell him that he would have to give a constructive lead if the country was to be saved. I must have been under considerable stress at that time, because I maintained some kind of a diary, a very unusual thing for me. The first entry is dated May 2, 1958 during a visit to the USA, and the last one September 6, 1958. Selections from these entries give an idea of my thinking and preoccupations during that period. May 2, 1958, played golf with General Nathan Twining and General Omar Bradley at the Burning Tree Golf Course. I was most impressed with the extreme dignity and humility of General Bradley, an old man of 67 still tough as a nut. He did a very difficult course in 80. Twining is also a very good player. During play, Twining kept talking to Bradley about Pakistan and our armed forces in warm terms. He told me that he does not understand State Department's policy towards India. Twining told me that he is arranging a lunch for me on the 5th of May, in which all the services chiefs would be present. This would give me an opportunity to talk to them informally about our problems. He said, "I would like you to be as frank and forthright as possible." May 5, 1958. Met the services chiefs at lunch. Explained to them our security problems and also the problems connected with military aid. In the evening met Alan Dulles and thanked him for putting his brother, who was the U.S. Foreign Secretary, in the picture regarding our problems. May 6, 1958. Addressed the House Foreign Affairs Committee in the Congress buildings. In this talk I analyzed the causes of the trouble in the Middle East, and the danger of any aid to India unless she gives guarantee of good behavior and solves disputes with us on a fair and honorable basis. I also tried to dispel the illusion that India's arms build-up was on account of the fear of China and that she had no aggressive intentions against Pakistan. They asked me some very searching questions. At night flew all the way to El Paso Fort Bliss, saw anti-aircraft guided missile demonstration. It was very impressive. It is obvious that the AA artillery is no longer of any use. The answer is to have these missiles which are 100% effective against anything that flies at any speed. Left for New York at night, May 8, 1958. Stayed with Prince Ali Khan. He had invited Cabot Lodge for lunch. Cabot is the man responsible for swinging America in favor of aid to India. I had a long discussion with him. I think towards the end, he was feeling somewhat doubtful of the wisdom of his recommendations. May 9, 1958. Left for England. May 13, 1958. Went to The Hague to see Begum Liaquat Ali Khan. She seemed relaxed but was very worried about the political situation in the country. She thought that only solution was tight rule in the country for about 10 years. May 14, 1958. Went to Brussels to join Amjad Ali, saw the Brussels World Fair. The Russians are making tremendous strides in the technical field, and will be second to none in a few years. May 18, 1958, reached Karachi. Saw the judgment in Ghamani's case in the newspapers. The judge's remarks about Firoz Noon's part were most distressing. This will give us another setback in the world, and demoralize our people further. May 21, 1958, left Karachi for Pindi by Tesgam on 20th May. I was to reach Pindi 21st evening. But I got down at Jhelum and met Azam. He mentioned to me something about a rumor emanating from Abbottabad that general and brigadier. names omitted for privacy, had been arrested. I just laughed it off as being absurd. If there was any truth in it, Chief of Staff whom I rang up from Karachi would have mentioned it to me. In Pindi I heard some more rumors. I mentioned them to my wife, and she said that she had been hearing all kinds of things. That has always been the way with her. Under adversity she has always shown tremendous courage and self-control, and taken care that I should not be given any cause for anxiety. I feel that without such a wise and far-sighted companion, I would never have been able to achieve in life what I have done. This freedom from home worries and lack of worry of bringing up a large family is the greatest blessing that a man can have, and without which a man can never reach his creative ceiling. My wife told me the gist of the rumors, which was that a number of senior officers were accused of being Indian agents. It then occurred to me to what extent people were prepared to go to malign others for selfish ends or out of sheer jealousy. I was astounded at the credulity of some of our people. They seemed to be prepared to swallow anything, even against their most devoted servants. This surely is the sign of immaturity or some kind of decay. I am an optimist by nature, but these rumors really shocked and depressed me. What if we were engaged in war, and things started going badly, and the enemy were to spread such rumors about the army in the back areas? The result would be disastrous. We would lose a war without firing a shot. A horrible thought. May 2nd, 1958, asked General Musa about the rumors. He told me that he had made inquiries and found that these rumors were started by some of the politicians in Abbottabad. The elections, of course, are drawing near. The politicians are trying to get back into power by hook or by crook. And having got there, they know that they will have nothing to show for themselves except working for the disruption of the country further. In that case they will come face to face with the army and me. Hence I am regarded by them as enemy number one, for doing my duty. Their conscience is so dead, that in order to obtain some political advantage, they will not stop at destroying the army, which is the only shield they have. I am one of those who have served democracy, as I believe that there is nothing like it if we can work the system. I refused to take over power when offered by the late Ghulam Mohammad. Then I had the hope that some amongst the politicians would show patriotism, selflessness, and the urge to get the country moving. But they have all been tried and found wanting. I am now certain that if the country is left to them, we should expect nothing but ruin. It seems that we shall have to have a system of government for a generation or so which prepares the country for democracy and solves some of our major problems. Under the present constitution, no one seems to have any power except you destroy discipline and to do harm. A politician is lucky if he can hang on to his seat, let alone do any good. Even if he wants to do any good, his supporters demanding all kind of selfish things would ensure that he does not get a chance. Meanwhile, certain actions have been put into operation to counter these rumors. May 27, 1958, addressed station officers on my visit to the USA, and on the fundamentals of the defense of Pakistan. June 1, 1958, attended conference on Kashmir affairs presided over by Prime Minister Noon. There were 3 other ex-prime ministers. They could have collected 2 more if they had waited a little longer. I thought the setting was made to enable them to score political points against each other, but instead they listened to me intently, and with understanding. They asked me what we should do about Kashmir, and stoppage of canal waters by India. Emotionally, of course, the answer is to go for India right away, but wisdom dictated a different course which I explained. June 6, 1958. Had a meeting with Corps commanders and divisional commanders. June 7, 1958. Our new experimental brigade has been formed. We are very excited about the future organization of our units. A host of new ideas are coming up. The underlying idea is to develop organizations on the concept of attacking or defending a piece of ground with firepower and not with bodies. The results should be interesting. Meanwhile, I have caused studies to be conducted in the manner in which we should use motorized infantry and armor in the armored division. June 9, 1958, Defense Secretary told me that I had been given 2 years extension which will be announced midday. How it happened and my reaction to it are contained in the signals below. Telegram dated June 9, 1958 from Mr. Firoz Khan Noon, Prime Minister of Pakistan to CNC Pakami. I am very glad that you have agreed to stay on as Commander-in-Chief of our armies for another 2 years. You are still very young, being 51 years of age, though very ripe in experience and ability. Pakistan at this juncture cannot afford to lose your services, and I am confident that the defenses of this country are safe in your hands, as they have been in the past. Ends. Commander-in-Chief's reply. Grateful for your message of appreciation and encouragement on my extension of tenure. Personally, I would have been just as happy to retire, as I would be in further serving this magnificent army, the building of which has been my lifelong ambition. In any case, I have eaten its salt for 31 years, and everything in me is due to it, and belongs to it. So you can rest assured that I shall continue to give my best to the army, and through it to the country. June 13, 1958. Went to Peshawar by air, and inspected a support battalion and a mortar battalion. While both have a formidable amount of firepower, especially anti-tank, it struck me that they had far too much transport. Some 150-odd vehicles. So much transport will require anything up to 30 miles of road space. So it is necessary to go into this aspect to see where the reduction can be made. June 14, 1958. Left for Kargan Valley for some rest. Spent the night at Shogran, a beautiful place with lovely views. Went out for a walk. Climbed about 1,200 feet. Took it easy as it was my first day on heights. June 15, 1958. Reached Naran and stayed there for 4 days. Did some fishing but spent most of the time reading The Men Who Ruled India. Climbed to Saiful Muluk Lake. It took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to climb 2,500 feet and 4 miles. It was the stiffest thing I had known, but the art is to move on slowly. However, the grandeur of the scenery was well worth the trouble. June 21, 1958. On return from Kargan, I was told that as a result of Ghulam Abbas's threat to breach the ceasefire line with large Jathas, a serious law and order situation had arisen. The president, who is nowadays resting in Nathiagali, had been authorized to interview Ghulam Abbas, and recommend course of action. I found to my utter horror, that he had recommended that no action should be taken against Abbas and his people, until they reached the ceasefire line. Then the army was to arrest them without any use of force. I at once rang up the president and protested against this amateurish decision, and demanded that if any action is to be taken, it should be taken by the civil authorities in Pakistan territory or in Azad Kashmir territory. A cabinet meeting was held on this, and my recommendations were approved. The problem in my job is that I have not only to run the army but also keep a watch on so many other things concerning the security of the country. This would not be necessary, if we had men of character and principles manning the government. June 24, 1958, attended a meeting of the subcommittee of the Cabinet on the future of POF-6WA, at Karachi. June 28, 1958, went to see the President at Nathiagali, also met Nawab Kazilbash, Chief Minister of West Pakistan, had a long discussion with him, on the future of the border police. They are some 58,000 men in East and West Pakistan, worth about 3 divisions. My contention is that they should remain a civil force, but officered by army officers like the Scouts, so that they can be trained tactically. In that case they will give a better service to the civil power in time of peace, and be available for use by the army in time of war. This is the obvious solution in the higher interests of the country, but Kazilbash, having once agreed, had gone back on his promise. So I had to be quite blunt with him and told him a few home truths. His worry is the disposal of some 50-odd police officers who trill become surplus. So to resolve this problem, it was agreed that a committee consisting of Defense Secretary, Chief Secretary, and a representative of GHQ should go into this matter. Incidentally, I am hearing similar difficulty with East Pakistan government. However, I am determined to see that they do the right thing in the end. Pakistan cannot afford to lose the use of this manpower in time of war. In fact, they may well prove to be a decisive factor. June 30, 2025. Lately I have been doing some interesting reading. Apart from The Men Who Ruled India, I have read Gunther's Inside Russia Today, and Captain Wins's articles on Pattern for Limited Nuclear War, The Riddle of the Skliefan Plan, published in Rusi Journal. These articles have set us thinking and re-examining some of our organizational concepts and tactical doctrines. I have to waste a lot of time in answering greeting messages on Eid days and other occasions, but I do so not to hurt people's feelings. Some of these messages are touching. They seem to have blind faith in me. This makes me feel very humble, and I pray to God to give me the strength to come up to their expectations. July 4, 1958. Attended a meeting at Government House, Lahore, in which President, Prime Minister, Chief Minister, and his West Pakistan cabinet were present. The Chief Minister called this meeting to get clarification over Abbas's move to cross ceasefire line with volunteers, the mounting irresponsibility of the political parties in stirring up trouble in the country to do the government down, and increasing sectarian tension. I was interested in the decisions about Abbas's move as that finally affected the army. It was decided that we should deal with Abbas and his men firmly and not allow them to create turmoil in the country. July 13, 1958, held a Joint Chiefs meeting. Several important things came up for discussion. Admiral Chowdhury raised the question of the concept of defense of Pakistan again, over which the decision had already been given by the Defense Committee of the Cabinet, and he had agreed with the rest of us during the previous meetings. Heated discussion followed. Sent a message on Tills to government. July 14, 1958. Took off from Karachi at 0415 hours, with the President in his Viscount for Tehran en route to Istanbul, where the conference of the heads of the Baghdad Pact Muslim states was scheduled to be held. Had a meeting with General Hidayat, Chief of the Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, to remove certain doubts about planning problems. During this meeting, General Hidayat was called out by a staff officer, and told that news had come through from their commander in Kanakin, that a coup d'etat had taken place in Iraq. A colonel supported by pro-Nasser and communist elements had taken over. Prince Abdul Ha, the king's uncle, was murdered and his body dragged in the streets of Baghdad. The palace was gutted, and so was the British embassy. The crowds were jubilant, and Nasser's photographs were visible everywhere. News about the fate of the king and Nuri said was conflicting, but it looked as if Nuri had escaped though his house was burnt, and that the king was held as prisoner. This was very serious and sad news. With a heavy heart we took off for Istanbul. As we were approaching Istanbul we were told to go and land in Ankara. There we were received by the President, and Mr. Menderes. The meeting was just like a morning. The Turks were very upset by the news from Baghdad. They confirmed more or less what we had heard in Tehran. Their ambassador in Baghdad had a transmitter and kept them well informed. But his reports were also vague as he and his staff could not go out to check details, there being so much confusion in the city. Had dinner with President Bayar. It was a very informal affair, in which the Shah of Iran, our President, Menderes and Zorlu were present. A meeting was arranged after dinner, in which the situation in Lebanon, Iraq and the future of the Baghdad Pact was discussed. I was impressed with the Shah's grasp of the situation and analysis. July 15, 1958. Assembled at the Presidential Palace at 1200 hours in an atmosphere of gloom because of the Iraqi situation. News came there that Nuri said was murdered, and that his body was dragged about in Baghdad. This is the way they have treated a man who had done so much for them. July 16, 1958. The heads of the three Muslim states decided that the Baghdad Pact meetings in London should be postponed, though I was of the view that these meetings of the BP countries should take place to take stock of the changed situation. 19 and July 20, 1958. The Turks are very sensitive about certain areas, but they were good enough to let me tour the Gallipoli Peninsula and visit the First World War battlefields. This trip was tiring, doing 800 miles in 2 days on bad road, but most interesting and instructive. In places the traces of opposing trenches are still visible. August 1, 1958, back in Pakistan, visited Mitha's outfit in Attock Fort and Cherat. The training of this unit, which will be of immense value in war, is coming on well, and everybody looked very enthusiastic, especially the young officers. They want to stay on there forever. To give this unit the ability to operate in considerable depth behind the enemy, I am trying to obtain a certain type of aircraft, which carry 6 passengers, and can land and take off from limited space. Moved to Marden in the afternoon to meet commanding officers of the new Punjab regiment, who had assembled for the annual conference of the regimental centre. They appeared to me to be alert and generally getting on well with one another. The new spirit of the enlarged regiment is emerging. August 5, 1958, attended 12 Div exercise at Murray. I was favourably impressed with the general level of professional knowledge. Our officers are now really getting to know their stuff. August 11, 1958, a civil officer came to see me in connection with the organisation of Cadet Corps. He was very depressed and painted a gloomy picture of the civil administration which was deteriorating rapidly through the perfidy of party politics. He felt that a majority of the civil servants also lend themselves to such misuse. August 15, 1958, went to Lahore to see a demonstration of an infantry company holding some 4,000 yards front on the new concept. We also discussed the organisation of a battalion on the new concept. Also saw Kozilbash in his office. He agreed to give land to the recipients of gallantry awards, and also for cattle breeding. August 19, 1958, visited the Recce battalion at Shinkiari. They seem to be coming on, except that they need additional 106 recoilless rifles per platoon. Later saw the commando school. I was satisfied with the progress. August 20, 1958, inspected PMA, Pakistan Military Academy Kakul. August 23, 1958, flew to Nowshera and saw a very interesting demonstration of anti-tank defense taking on a regiment of tanks in attack. There is no doubt that this rifle is a formidable anti-tank weapon, but it requires great skill to use it to the fullest effect. August 26, 1958, recorded a message about Field Marshal Montgomery for Radio Pakistan. August 28, 1958, Secretary, Ministry of Defense, attended a meeting with Chief Secretary West Pakistan, along with GHQ representatives, and representatives of the police, to discuss militarization of the border police and the disposal of police officers who may be rendered surplus. The policeman is naturally trying to raise all sorts of objections and obstacles. The politician too is chary of making any hard decisions, which may annoy the police, as he probably expects a lot from the police during the forthcoming elections. I believe the policeman is regarded as the real election-winning factor. My instructions are to patiently keep relentless pressure until the right thing is done. It may take time, but the security of the country demands that this force should be militarized. I am receiving very depressing reports about economic distress, maladministration through political interference, frustration and complete loss of faith by the people in political leadership, inclusive of the President. The general belief is that none of these men have any honesty of purpose, integrity, or patriotism to root out evils of the country which will require drastic action. The general belief is emerging that even I and the army are failing to do our duty by not saving the people from these tyrants. This dangerous belief is obviously based on the ignorance of the functions of the army, but when people become desperate they are apt to seek escape through any means. I wonder if they realize that if it was not for my keeping aloof from politics they would not have had this army, and if this type of army was not there, they would have lost their independence by now. September 3, 1958. Disquieting news of massive economic aid to India by America and other Western countries is coming in. This will further release India's resources for a reckless military build-up against us, thus making our position far more difficult. September 6, 1958. Visited Karachi, discussed problems relating to evacuee property with Rehabilitation Ministry. Also discussed the charter of the DG Director General Defence Purchases, with Defence Secretary. I impressed on him the necessity of speeding up procurement and disposal. September 13, 1958, attended Passing Out Parade of OTS. September 14, 1958. Attended Rally and Recruitment, Mela Fair. September 15, 1958, flew off to Lahore at 0530 hours. Attended 10th Punjab Centenary. Returned after lunch. September 18, 1958, left for northern areas, met the political agent and the resident. September 20, 1958, did some fishing in Gupis River. September 21, 1958, returned to Gilgit. September 22, 1958, left for Hunza. September 23, 1958, received information about political flare-up in Karachi from the Chief of Staff. September 24, 1958, returned to Gilgit, lunched with Mir of Nagar, received a detailed message from the Chief of Staff about Muslim League's activity. I told the COS that no major commitment should be made without his prior approval. 23 September. Returned to Rawalpindi at 10:15 hours.